Wendy, what should we be looking for with these players? Starting with DeAndre Ayton.
Let me tell you something, Ryan. I've seen some toxic offer sheets in my career, and this was not one of them. This was a very clean offer sheet, and it was an easy match for the Suns. No player option, no trade bonus, no shenanigans with the pay schedule. This was the Pacers putting them to the test, saying, are you really going to stop doing this to try to maintain the KD sweepstakes? The answer was no. We're keeping him. They matched it literally in minutes. Big day for DeAndre Ayton. What does it mean for Donovan Mitchell? It means Donovan Mitchell's chances of becoming a Knick just increased. They were already the favorites, but there were scenarios where Donovan Mitchell could be involved in 3 and 4 team trades to get him to Brooklyn, who was looking for a young star in return for Kevin Durant. This is a young star, 25 years old. The Knicks are in position. Will they meet Utah's price? That's what we're going to be watching very closely in the coming days. There's action on Donovan Mitchell. As for Kevin Durant, here's what there is. Nothing. There is no movement here. The executives are leaving Summer League. The executives are going on vacation. At this point, the Nets' preferred situation is for Kevin Durant to stay with them. There is no trade that they've got that they like. The huge question, and what the league in some ways is waiting for, is what does Durant feel? He was the one who asked for the trade, Ryan. Has his feelings changed with some of the avenues for trades dimming?
Wow, that's the big question. And by the way, when you talk about him possibly staying there, Hall of Famer Jerry West thinks that might be the case. He was on Sirius XM NBA radio. He gave his thoughts on Kevin Durant's trade request. Remember, they go way back. He knew him in Golden State, all of that. Take a listen to what he had to say.
For him to want out, I can see why. I can see why. Wherever he goes, or to my best guess, he'll be in. He's not going to get traded. You can't give enough to get a guy like him. He's one of the greatest players to ever play the game, period.
See, I think that's such an interesting point right there, because the idea being he is worth so much, it's going to be hard for them to move on from him, and it's going to be hard for him to move. So, Nick Friedel, I'll start with you. Do the Nets run it back with KD and Kyrie?
Ryan, they'd love to run it back with Kevin. Where I get stuck, having been around that team the last few months and watched all the destruction that occurred behind the scenes, is whether or not they would run it back with Kyrie. That's where I think the Nets have an issue, and this ties exactly into what Brian was saying. The question here is twofold. One, would Durant actually come back to Brooklyn? Two, would he come back to Brooklyn without Kyrie? That is what only he knows right now, and at some point he's going to have to convey to the Nets. If he would, I think that's Brooklyn's dream scenario to start the season, because Sean Marks talked about the culture they want to grab back. If you deal Kyrie to LA or anywhere else and you start the season with Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Joe Harris, and that strong core that's in place, you've got a chance. But I have a tough time believing that Kevin and Kyrie will be there to start next season.
Okay, and Canty, we brought you in here because we wanted to, you're big in the New York market, You know these teams. So when you look at this situation, do you see this happening, the two of them coming back, or do you think it's better off if maybe Kyrie's out?
Man, they're coming back. They don't have any choice. The Brooklyn Nets have all the leverage in the world in this situation, and I get it, the NBA is star-driven, and stars typically get what they want when they ask to be traded. But stars don't usually have 4 years remaining on their contract. And if everybody that knows Kevin Durant, that covers Kevin Durant, says this guy loves the hoop, there's no chance that he's going to sit out this season. He's 34 years old and at the height of his powers. So the Brooklyn Nets, if they can't find the deal that's going to net them the return that they're looking for in order to rebuild this team quickly to have sustained winning, then Kevin Durant is going to be on the squad. And Kevin Durant was always going to be the first of the two big players in Brooklyn moved. And because they can't necessarily find that match, Phoenix now off the market, at least for the time being because of the Ayton signing, I could see a world where KD and Kyrie decide, at least for the beginning of the season, we're going to play in Brooklyn.
So I like where this is going. Nick's saying he can't imagine Kyrie coming back. You're saying both of them come back. Wendy, settle it for us. How do you think this plays out? Because, look, I don't even know if KD is going to now say it's contingent on Kyrie staying, or he needs to go because I want to, if I stay.
Ryan, as you can imagine, I spend a lot of time each day talking to people all over the league about this exact situation. And here's where I've gotten to. I'm not going to make an assumption on anything about Kevin Durant. And I wish I could give a firmer, more well-rounded answer here, but I'm not going to assume how he's going to feel, how he has felt. It isn't 100% clear to me. It might not even be 100% clear to the Nets exactly why he asked out. And so I am not going to try to guess at where his emotions and his feelings are. But what I can tell you is that's what it's going to come down to. I understand what Canty is saying. The Nets contractually have the advantage, but ultimately it's a players-driven league where the player gets to decide, and we have seen it over and over and over again. The contract is secondary when you have the clout.
Yeah, the ultimate leverage he has is saying, look, I'm not coming in until you do something. And then that changes everything. But again, we don't know where KD stands, so that's what everybody's looking for. Okay, so from the current Nets to a former Net. After a disappointing season in Philly, James Harden spoke with Hot Time, did I say that right? Hate Time, Hot Time, about how he is using the offseason to get back to an elite level. Take a listen to this. He says, I've had the luxury of not having to deal with any serious injuries, with surgeries and whatnot, my entire career. But these last 2 years, I've been dealing with some hamstring issues, which are nothing to play with. So I'm taking this summer as an opportunity to do something for me, to make sure I get back to the elite level that I know I can be at and that I will be at. Music to the ears of Sixers fans like me. And Wendy, I got to ask you, Harden, what is the latest with him and Philly and what's going on between the two of them, especially in their deal?
This is actually a fascinating situation that is being overshadowed by stuff happening elsewhere in the league. James Harden is gambling on himself. He has not signed a contract yet with the Sixers because I think he's waiting to see what moves the Sixers are going to make so he can decide where his contract's going to fall. But I can tell you, he's going to take an 8-figure pay cut to make whether the Sixers have done this offseason work. But he's going to sign short, Ryan. The indications are he's going to sign a 1-year contract with a player option for a second year and look to basically have a prove-it year. This is not something you see from a player in this age group. Now, LeBron did this in Cleveland, but it wasn't about proving it. It was about keeping maximum pressure and maximum flexibility. This is about him showing the league and the Sixers that he's going to be a max player again. They weren't ready to give him a long-term max contract. So he is going to have a motivational season, likely on a short deal, after taking a $12, $15 million pay cut and going back to them next year and say, I'm going to show you I'm still great. And that is actually a pretty advantageous place to be in if you're the Sixers, especially if you believe that his dedication to himself in this offseason will pay off in the fall.
Okay, so first I got depressed when you said they haven't signed a contract yet, but then as you put it like that, now I'm optimistic again. So, Nick, I turn to you. Would you bet on Harden putting in the work to become an elite level talent again?
I still think he can do it, Ryan. I covered him at the end of that tenure in Brooklyn, and there were flashes of brilliance, flashes of the old Harden. We didn't see it a lot, but the key is, does Harden want to get in shape? Does he want to dedicate himself to be that type of player? There were two things that always set Harden apart when he was in his prime and rolling with all those scoring numbers. Explosion to the rim and being able to separate. The separation he would get to create the shots he wanted. That was the difference. That hasn't been there the last 2 years. If he dedicates himself in the gym and can find a way to get his body back in order the way he needs to, he can still be a top-tier player in the league.
All right, and you know what? I've seen all the videos, him lifting.